Noon. First question is, as the hottest national wildlife refuge, this Arizona refuge averages 100 days of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or hotter every year. Which refuge is it? No. 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 That's correct. I got a, yeah, come, you can pick up a prize at the registration desk. And I understand that.
The visitor services manager there, but.
Okay. Okay, give that back. Question number 2 is, the first refuge manager was paid $1 a month and supplemented his income by building boats. What was his name? Somebody else. And the last question is, what national wildlife refuge has the longest name? Close. What did you said? It's, well, you got it mostly. It's Julia Butler Hansen Refuge for the Columbia white-tailed deer. I'll let you have it. So. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome. A lot of what they've talked about the last couple of days, yesterday morning and yesterday and today, they talked about partnerships and they talked about volunteers in your friends group and utilizing your friends. And the next couple of years are going to be hard, and we've relied on our friends group in the past during tough times, and we're going to have to rely on them again. And so, at this time, I wanted to introduce Ann Smith for the Increasing Refuge Support via Friends Group workshop. Ann Smith is the current Vice President and past President of Friends of Black Bayou Lake National Wildlife Refuge, having worked with the group since the refuge inception in 1997. She's a frequent speaker and teacher at Friends conferences and NCTC training academies. She holds a BA and an MA degree in English literature from Louisiana State University, and has 2 sons, Jacob, 29, and Walt, 24. Recently, she retired after 28 years as a university instructor and administrator, and is looking forward to spending more time volunteering at her refuge and others, as well as continuing her work as a communication consultant. Please help welcome Ann Smith.
Now is it on? I think it is. I hear myself. Okay. Okay. Yes, I'm Ann Bloxam Smith from Black Bayou Lake National Wildlife Refuge. And before I say anything more about myself, I'd like to find out about my audience. I see a couple of friends here, but friends, capital F, and friends, small f. Or if you're a friend of a refuge, would you let me know that? Okay, wonderful. Wow. Okay, so if you're a refuge employee, raise your hand. Okay, all right. And some other sort of partner? Okay, what sort of partner are you? NWRA, okay. Wow, okay, hadn't met you. Hi. We're an affiliate of yours. Okay. Yes, I'm Ann Bloxam Smith, and I'm in love. How many of you are in love? Isn't it great? I am crazy about being in love. Being in love makes life worth living. And I've been in love for the last 14 years with a refuge. I'm crazy in love. Some of you already know me, and you already know this about me. But I'm in love with the Refuge System. I'm in love with wild places in general. But I'm particularly in love with a little 4,500-acre refuge tucked in the northeast corner of Louisiana, and it's called Black Bayou Lake National Wildlife Refuge. Of that 4,500 acres, about 1,600 of that is a lake. That varies a lot according to rainfall. So there's more or less swamp out there all the time. So this is it right behind me. And you can see why I love it, can't you? You should come. If you've never been to Black Bayou Lake National Wildlife Refuge, you should come. Because when people think of Louisiana, this is what they think of. A lot of the people that come to our refuge, local folks, will come, and they come because they have company from out of town, and they bring them out to the refuge because they say, oh, well, we wanted to show people what Louisiana was like. So they come to the refuge to bring their company with them. And I'm always really proud of that because I think we're a good example of one of the best parts of Louisiana. And, you know, we in Louisiana complain all the time about Louisiana. But this is one of the really good things about Louisiana. And I think it's a beautiful state, and we're very proud of it. We're very proud of this refuge. I'm telling you all this up front about my love life because I want you to know that my heart is in this work. 14 years ago, this refuge began. It began as a strange kind of cooperative venture with the city of Monroe, Louisiana. This refuge is just 2 miles outside the city limits, which gives it a lot of unique opportunities. And so it's a great place for kids. It's a great place for families. It's a wonderful place for environmental education. And that's one of our things that our Friends group really concentrates on. 14 years ago, when that refuge started, the Friends group started at the same time. So when I'm talking with you about our refuge and our Friends group and what we do, at our refuge, we talk about we all the time. And so sometimes I confuse people because we can mean we, the Friends group, it can mean we, the refuge, and the staff and the Friends group and all of us together. It can mean we, like I'll say, we planted thousands of trees. Well, actually, I didn't do it. The refuge staff did it, but it's we, and we all talk about it like that. In our town, in Monroe, Louisiana, they talk about Friends of Black Bayou. And when they say that, they don't mean just the Friends group. They mean everybody that has anything to do with that refuge. And I like it like that. We've always been like that since the beginning. There's always been that connection. We, the Friends group, don't do anything without talking with the refuge staff, with the manager. The managers, we've only had 2, talk with us, they communicate with us, they let us know what's going on. And so I think that's a key to our success as a Friends group. I'm also in love with this group of people that has been working for the refuge for the last 14 years, Friends of Black Bayou. I'll have to tell you to begin with, and I'm going to mention one name several times that you're going to hear, and it's Jim Moore. Jim, I think, is 87 or 88 now. Jim designed our logo for us. He's a retired graphic artist. He was already retired when we started 14 years ago. He's not in good health. He still comes to almost every meeting of our Friends group, and we meet every month. So he designed our logo for us. That's an anhinga. I don't know if you have anhingas in your part of the world, but you do. And people said, "You're putting an anhinga on your logo? You know, why not like an alligator or something glamorous?" And we liked it. We liked the anhinga, so there he is. We wanted that logo to be as ubiquitous as the Nike swoosh or the McDonald's arches. And in our town, it just about is. People know the logo. And Jim Moore, one of our volunteers in our Friends group, designed that logo. One of the reasons that I'm telling you about my love life is that I think that all refuge work is local. All conservation work is local. And I know that sounds really naive. I realize that there are national issues and national connections that we have to make, that we need to make, but it all starts with the local. And if I and the other people in our Friends group hadn't fallen in love with that piece of land in Northeast Louisiana, we wouldn't be going up to Washington with the NWRA helping to lobby to make money to try to raise money for the refuge system, to try to make sure the refuges are funded. We wouldn't have done any of that if it hadn't been for the fact that we fell in love with a plot of land in Northeast Louisiana. So to me, all refuge work, all conservation work starts with the local. And so this is important to me because of this place in Louisiana. Jim Moore, same guy. Several years ago, Kelby, our founding manager, had to make a presentation up at NCTC, I believe. And about the same time, I was going somewhere to make a presentation, so Jim drew this for us. And I scanned it. You can tell he did it with colored pencils if you look carefully. I mean, it's self-explanatory, isn't it? It's a two-way love affair between the refuge system and the Friends, and my experience at this conference has been that we not only love them, but I think they love us back. So that's been a very nice experience for me here this week. I'm going to show you this for a couple of reasons. And one is, this is my model. It was also our very first fundraising project. And there's a story behind it, of course. I'm not going to go into all that. But this beautiful lady, who was our refuge manager's mother-in-law, helped us to start with. She was a master quilter. And we came up with this idea of doing a quilt. And so she did the lion's share of the work. She did the design. She did most of the quilting. All of us pitched in and helped where we could. But we sold the squares for $50 a square. And if you bought a square for $50, we would embroider your name on the square and include it in the quilt. So with this quilt, we not only raised about $5,000, which was the first money that we had. I mean, we started with nothing. It was the first money we had. It also resulted in a beautiful work of art that hangs in our visitors center now. So it had a couple of purposes, but its purpose today is to be my model. And what I mean by that is our Friends group, and I think successful Friends groups, successful refuge support groups in general have to be like a patchwork quilt. And the diversity of those Friends groups has to be celebrated and has to be taken advantage of when we go out and get other partners and support for the refuge. So the diversity here is in the colors, it's in the patterns. You can see that every ring of squares has a different pattern, and it also has a different color scheme. It goes from inside out around the medallion. The first squares are blue mostly for water. The second group is brown for earth. The third group is shades of green for vegetation. And the last is shades of yellow and gold for sunlight, sky. It works really well, I think, as a model for a friends group and a friends group's effectiveness in that it's not just a crazy quilt. Although it does have a lot of variety there, and that's what I'm talking about celebrating here, but it does have a pattern. And the pattern has to do with what, managers? What's our first mission? Wildlife first, right? Wildlife first. We friends, when we start out, sometimes start out with all kinds of enthusiasm, let's go, let's go. But we need guidance. We need to be told, if anybody starts getting off the track, that the theme here is wildlife first. I can remember a couple of our original meetings, and everybody was so excited. We were just ready. At first, we were having a meeting every week. There was a lot of enthusiasm. Let's go. We had no place we were borrowing places to meet. We met all over the place. We met in the library. We met in biology classrooms at the university. For a while, almost a year, we were meeting in a community room at a hospital. We met outside at the Refuge, anywhere we could find to meet. And we were just gung-ho. We were going, and I remember one of our founding members got all excited one day talking about getting kids on the Refuge, and why don't we get a soccer field? And I remember our Refuge manager, if you know Kelby, you know the voice. And I can't do the voice, but there's a Kelby voice. But he was sitting in the back of the room, leaning back in a chair. And, you know, this discussion about a soccer field and things went on for a few minutes. And he finally, chair came down, and you heard this growl from the back of the room, not gonna happen. And so occasionally he would have to sort of explain to the group, wait, doesn't have anything to do with wildlife. And so there is this that has to happen from the very beginning. You can't just cut a friends group loose. You have to work with them from the very beginning. It may be especially at the beginning. After a while, we get educated. Yes, sir?
How much did you have to pay for the square one in the center?
Well, that one we threw in for free. Okay. Isn't that gorgeous, though? And the diversity in this is very cool. Lil Griffin here was a member of a quilters guild, and so they all got involved. One of the ladies in the quilters guild did all the applique. Did you know that was called applique in the middle? She did all the applique in the middle. A local artist, a young man, did the design of that center medallion. And of course, it has, native animals there. He used our logo that I showed you earlier. He used our logo as his inspiration with the anhinga there. But yeah, that one got thrown in for nothing. But I thought it was a great project. Now, we quilted that in her house once she got the whole thing put together. And I think about 2.5 years later, she was very glad to have the grand opening of the visitor center so that she could get it out of her house. Our very first project was building a pier out into the lake. It was 400 feet long. It was built largely with money from international paper. Now, this is another way that this patchwork works. One of my things as an English and communication professor was to talk about how to raise money for nonprofits. And one of the things that we got pretty good at was going to folks that could get something in return when they gave us money. So International Paper, the local branch there, now closed, gave us $50,000 for this pier. And I mean, you couldn't build it for $50,000 now, but you could back then. With the help of Fish and Wildlife Service, you know, had provided some of the labor and us. That was our first big project. But the thing was, we celebrated International Paper. We put them up for a statewide conservation award with Louisiana Wildlife Federation, and they won. We nominated them and they won. They got a lot of good publicity from this. And as I'm going to talk about some more later on, every time we do something like this, we celebrate it, we invite the press, they all come out, we have ribbon cuttings, presentations, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Oh, let me go back just a second. Ah, it worked. The variety of that original group goes back to my quilt model. There's Kelby in the front with his back to us. George Maux on the right-hand side was one of our original members. He was a salesman extraordinaire. He was a bulldog. He would not take no for an answer. Our original president was an economics professor. I was an English and communications professor. Had a couple of accountants sitting there. There's an elementary school teacher, computer programmer. You know, and every Friends group is like this. They've got all kinds of diversity, and if they don't, they need to try to foster that kind of diversity. The political opinion diversity, if you can imagine this in Louisiana, is amazing. It's amazing we don't all, you know, come to blows. We just don't talk about politics. We talk about the refuge, because this is what brings us together. Okay, but there's a lot of diversity there, and we get a lot of support from strange, unexpected quarters because of the people that are in the Friends group. They help us bring in those diverse supporters. So, yeah, I didn't want to just talk about the pier. I wanted to also tell you something about that group. Now, managers. I know we've got quite a few managers in the room. Please help to educate your Friends group, especially at the beginning. If you can keep bringing them back to wildlife, it's going to keep them on track. And if you'll help educate them about the wildlife, they will really appreciate that. In the 14 years, I've got 2 degrees in English, you know? It's incredible how much I've learned. I can take groups of school children on tours around the refuge now and point out every snake that I see and tell them what it is, and every bird and tell them what that is, and every different kind of lizard. And this is because I've learned from the people in the Fish and Wildlife Service about the animals on our refuge. And to some extent, the plants. I'm still not so good with the plants. But help us out. That's what we're there for. That's what we love, is the critters. We love the critters. So if you'll just help us out, we can help you more if you help educate us. So just the other day, I got the opportunity, after 14 years, to go do my first mist netting and bird banding. And so this is one of the Fish and Wildlife Service employees on our refuge, Brittany Peterson, and her friend, the hooded warbler. I had never seen a hooded warbler close like that. I was just amazed. And I mean, this is after 14 years. Not only was this day to go out with her and the biologist, not only was this educational for me, but it was inspirational for me. It energized me to go out and do more work for the refuge. And it wasn't just me on this trip. But don't assume that because somebody's been volunteering for a long time at the refuge that they don't still get excited about it. They still get excited about it. So you can do that for us. So one of Kelby's things early on with our friends group was, he said, you need to give a friends group a big project and then stand back and let them do it. So to begin with, we were given an 1880s planter's home. And Kelby's vision was that this planter's home that was just about to fall down, and it wasn't on site yet, would be our visitor center, that it would make a great visitor center. Now, Bob Eisenstadt was our first president, the economist. You can imagine his reaction to this. But Kelby and I kind of teamed up and said, yes, we can do this. Bob kept saying, you know, we could do a prefab building or something and throw something up a lot cheaper and quicker. And Kelby's vision was, no, this will bring people to the refuge. It's got that, it'll have that historic quality that'll bring a whole different group to the refuge. And it has. It has brought interest that has been amazing. But I was there the day that we moved the house about a half a mile down the road, and it didn't fall apart. Some of the movers we tried to hire had said it'll fall apart if you try to move it. But you see, it took 2 trucks. They chained the 2 trucks together. The old man that owned the company and I walked backward for a half a mile in front of them. And he had his son in one truck, his grandson in the other truck, and he told them every move to make for that half mile. And they got it moved, and it did not fall apart. It was pretty amazing. We got a lot of in-kind stuff donated, like the scaffolding was donated, the use of the scaffolding that should have cost us a lot. And I just put this up here as an example of the kind of things that you can reach out and get and do and accomplish if you just ask. We went around and asked, and most of the time in the process of rebuilding this house, most of the time if we asked one company, they would say yes. It was incredible how few times we got no's, just because we were so enthusiastic and excited about it that they would kind of catch the fever too. That man was a retired Army guy, and he acted as our volunteer contractor for full-time, no money, for 4 years. And he not only did a lot of the work himself, he helped with the design. The architectural work was also done for free by an architectural company in town. And this guy, Dave Tyler, taught those of us who didn't know much about building how to do things. So he would be there all week, and then on weekends he'd come out there and show us what to do. And then he'd go home and rest a little bit. We gave him time off for church. And so here it is. Now notice the open door. I always like that picture because the door is open. So that's our visitor center.
Did you get that roof for free?
No, and we couldn't do that with volunteer labor. That was the first thing. And I don't remember where that money came from. We had money from so many different sources. That may have been refuge money. It may have been Fish and Wildlife Service money for the roof.
How much money do you have invested in that?
Money? It was almost all volunteer labor. We probably raised about $300,000, maybe more. We got so much in-kind stuff that it was really hard to estimate exactly how much it was worth. Our president at the time said that the whole business was at least $500,000. But I think he was counting some of our labor. He didn't value our labor really highly because we weren't skilled, but but I think he did value the labor somewhat. So he calls it a $500,000 project. It's actually a quite beautiful place inside. So I couldn't do this presentation without having a picture of Sam Hamilton. And what happened here is after a couple of 3 years in our visitor center, we decided that our educational outreach had outgrown the facility, and it really had. We had so many school groups coming in that didn't have room to do the kind, or the facilities to do the kind of messy science that we wanted them to be able to do. So we decided we were going to start raising money, and this is when I first became president of the group. We decided we were going to start raising money to do a conservation learning center. And for some reason, I think we were at a conference in Washington, and Sam was there, and he was our regional manager at the time. I had just become president, and he said, well, Ann, y'all are going to have the Regional Friends Conference at your refuge in March. This was, I think, November at the time. And he said, you're going to have the Regional Friends Conference at your refuge in March. So if you can raise $50,000 by the time I see you in March, 4 months, we'll put up $150,000. And I'm pretty sure that he didn't think that we could do it, to raise $50,000 in 4 months. I don't know if you can read the number on that check that we were handing him, but it was $250,000. We raised $50,000, you know, from our usual sources, private folks, industry, and so on. $200,000 was matching funds, sort of a match to prospective funds, that we got from the local Convention and Visitors Bureau. We sold them on the idea that this would bring in tourists. And so, so we gave him the $250,000 check. Fish and Wildlife Service ended up putting in more than $150,000, I'm sure, by the end. And then we raised some more money later on to build aquariums, a little indoor pond where we have little baby alligators and turtles and things. We then had one of our members die, and a lot of memorial money came in, and we have a big display now of native snakes with that money. So it all came together, but I had to just give you this picture with Sam in it. There's the Conservation Learning Center there in the background. Same architectural firm that did the renovation work for us did this for free. Well over $150,000 worth of architectural work. They carried us all the way through. They helped us do the bids for the contractor. We didn't build this ourselves. We paid for it. They helped us do the bidding for getting the bids for the contractor. They carried us all the way through the inspection process and threw in a great deal of work for free. They got so excited about the project themselves that they kept thinking of things that could improve it, and they would do those things. The next big project was an extension to the pier. I told you about our bulldog, George, and so there's George in a wheelchair there. That's where the pier, the original pier was 400 feet. We added about 800 more feet. It carried it around and back, and it hooked into nature trail / boardwalk, which was, by the way, largely paid for by a trails grant from the state of Louisiana. So that was another thing. We went to the state and asked for trails grant money, and they gave it to us. But George went out and got cooperation from the sheriff's department. We got a lot of inmate labor to help on this. A lot of inmates, it turned out, had really good carpentry skills. I mean, expert carpentry skills. And they were so excited to be outside and working that they did amazingly good work. I got to be friends with a couple of these guys while they were doing the work, and they were just tickled over themselves at what a good job they had done with this pier. So, and of course, there was a lot of money involved. George raised a lot of that money for us. Just for your interest, our present president is standing behind George with the brimmed hat, and then that's Wallace Hardy. And Bob Eisenstadt is still with us. He's now our treasurer, and he's standing behind George there. The dog's name is Bandy. We lost George in November, I believe it was. Our friends group is now old enough that we're losing people. And that's an unfortunate thing that happens. And one of the reasons why we always need to be thinking about succession in friends groups. So, same event. I put this in here because I wanted to talk about diversity some more and just the way that we can pull in different sorts of people. And so right to left there, that's the sheriff on the right with the khaki color on. That's our mayor in the center cutting the ribbon. And then George Malk there. Some of the other folks there are people who did the construction. And as always, anybody that gets involved at the refuge ends up giving a lot more than they're getting paid for. So now, you know, we're in probably our third stage of growth as a friends group, and we're working a great deal with children. One of the things that we're enjoying a lot is the ponds that we dug early on. We're enjoying teaching kids how to fish. So actually I retired a month ago, and I retired on Friday, and on the Monday after I retired, we started 2 weeks of day camps at our refuge. So I was up there every day working with the kids at the day camps. And we had one little boy, slightly handicapped child, who caught a 5-pound catfish in one of our ponds. He was the first kid to catch a fish that day. So that was pretty cool. Jim Moore, again, the same guy that has done all the drawing, wrote this poem for me, and he wanted me to read it to you. And I'm happy to do so, because this has a lot to do with where we are now as a refuge and as a friends group. And he named this poem The Refuge. He got off the bus at the refuge, leaving the schoolhouse behind. His friends went outside with him, not knowing what they would find. That day he'll always remember, because his eyes were opened wide to the fascinating world of wildlife that the refuge would provide. In all of his subsequent visits, he became more acutely aware of the important place that wildlife holds in this land that all of us share. A nature trail winding through woodlands, ponds filled with interesting creatures. These are just some of the things he found that the refuge always features. Interpretive naturalist Gabe Brantley was instrumental in his learning about the delicate balance, the essence of nature that she is so good at discerning. He saw Black Bayou Lake as a wonderful place with Mother Nature in all of her glory, with many forms of wildlife living together, each having a different story. To what could all this lead in his life? A career in wildlife conservation? If he makes such an excellent choice, he'll be an asset to his state and his nation. So, and then Jim wrote a little note at the bottom. He says, within this fiction lies a strong element of truth. Black Bayou Lake National Wildlife Refuge, which emphasizes wildlife education, is a place where valuable seeds are planted in the minds of school children, seeds that could lead to essential careers in wildlife management or related fields. And you know, we got that with the children this morning who were here, and so it certainly is the case that those kinds of experiences can be inspirational for those children. I'm just going to show you a couple of more pictures about showing you some of the educational efforts at the refuge. We have a volunteer educational director that's part of our friends group. It's Amy Uchley, who was a biology professor, now retired. And she comes out there and helps. She especially does a lot of work with teachers, teaching the teachers how to use the refuge in working with their classes. And I just loved that picture. A few weeks ago, during our day camps, we were taking the kids on a walk on our boardwalk nature trail, and right next to the boardwalk, there was a fawn. And it never moved. It did just what its mama had told it to do. It stayed right there, and all these kids trooped by and looked. Amy Uchley had a group of middle schoolers out there the same day. All of them got to troop by and see the fawn. I had to keep on going back out there. I couldn't stand it. I had to go and see if the fawn was okay. We finally saw the mother, and so we got away so that she would feel free to come back. But you know, in Louisiana, we've got a word, lagniappe. You know lagniappe? Lagniappe is free for nothing, as they say. It's a free gift. It's a surprise. It's something, in this case, something cool that happened. And so that fawn was lagniappe. And it's something that you can almost depend on something, some kind of lagniappe on a refuge. So outreach, again, we try a little bit of everything. We decided we were going to put up a billboard to help in the anti-litter campaign in the area. So a friend of ours, a member of the Friends group, designed this billboard, and I just absolutely loved it. Our group paid for the vinyl to be made, and then the sign company lets us have it rent-free. So it's been up in 2 different locations now. When they sell a spot, they're not going to pass up getting money for the spot, you know, where we are. So they move us. So I'm okay with that. It probably gets different audience that way. So, but I really like that. And it's another little outreach idea. Get to the public a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
Did you say that you guys, your friends group, paid for it's one of the large vinyl signs?
Yes. $800. $800. It's a full size. It's the big, you know, billboard size.
And Lamar has donated.
Lamar made the vinyl, and we paid to have it made, and then they are giving us the sign placement rent-free. We also have cooperative programs going with the university, particularly with the biology department. This was Amity. She was a graduate student. Now she works for Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. One of these days she hopes to work for U.S. Fish and Wildlife. But she was out there all the time with her professor, Dr. John Carr, who's a turtle guy. He's a herpetologist. And one day, Bob and I were out walking on the nature trail, and this old girl, the turtle, was laying eggs almost right next to the trail. Somehow she had made her way all the way from the lake, a long way, and was laying eggs. We were concerned because she was right by the trail. And we called John Carr. He brought Amity out there on Sunday. They processed the turtle as they normally would. Because it was right by the trail, sometimes they put a cage over the nest to keep it from being predated. We have almost 100% predation of the eggs on the refuge, mostly raccoons, foxes, bobcats, whatever, mostly raccoons. But in this case, he gathered the eggs, as he does sometimes, and took them back to his lab and incubated them for a few months. Every October, we have a fall celebration, and my favorite part of the fall celebration every year is that we have the turtles, silver dollar size, alligator snapping turtles, that we let the children have one each to release into the swamp. And they're like he's like a Pied Piper John or one of his graduate assistants will take all the kids out with them and then hand out the turtles, and the kids are out there putting the turtles in the water. I was out there with Amy Uchley for one of these occasions a few years back, and she said, you know, those kids will remember this experience always. And you see their faces, and you know that's the case. But it's a good cooperative project that we can do. We get the advantage of the science, the good science that's being done, and actually we get written up in articles every now and then also. But we also get the turtles that the children get to let go every fall. We also work with the local public radio station. Another example of diversity of outreach. Twice a year, if you're around a public radio station, you know, at least twice a year, sometimes 3, they're fundraising. So we're up at the radio station, we're pitching on air, we're answering the phones, we're doing everything for 2 to 3 hours, 2 to 3 times a year. You can bet that when we have an event or anything that we want to publicize, they publicize it for us. They'll interview us on air, whatever it takes. It's a good way to, you know, just being friendly. We're cooperating with them. 2 of us now are on the community advisory board for the radio station, so that doesn't hurt either. Also, there's Kelby up there. I'll have to tell you, he has a radio show called Bayou Diversity. He'll have a book coming out in the fall called Bayou Diversity, by the way. He has an essay that he reads every week on air, an original essay. And it's because of his program, Bayou Diversity, that he was able to get the word out about starting a new Friends group when our Refuge started. That's how we got started. Now the Friends group underwrites his radio program. So the radio station is happy about that. Also, getting back to recognition for companies and groups that help us in any way. We always invite the press. We have, at this particular ribbon cutting, they had built, it wasn't a pier exactly, it's a boardwalk that goes out to an observation deck and the back part of the lake. The company that put up most of the money was a merchant utility company. So again, we were able to give them some good publicity in return for their money. Also, the local bird club put up some money. The lady in the middle there, whose husband was a biologist locally, a lot of folks gave memorial money after he died, and so we were able to buy a really nice spotting scope to go on that deck with that money. So we get all these people together and get the press out here, and we invited the Chamber of Commerce to this particular event and then had a big party for them in the visitor center with refreshments and so on afterward. We invited them for one of their after-hours events that they have. So another example of bringing different kinds of groups in as partners, this is a photography blind. It's not quite finished here. The last step with building this was hanging camouflage-type curtains in this. So that you can, there are chairs inside, and you can sit in there with your camera and be between the curtains, and you can get wonderful bird life out in this that's normally a pond. More examples of ways to reach out in different ways. National Wildlife Refuge Association, we're affiliate members. And proud to be so. The very first, I believe, conference that we had in Washington where NWRA taught us a lot about how to lobby. We had workshops and so on, and then we headed up to the Hill and headed around. Everybody from Louisiana went together. And some of us had never met before, but we went together to our senators' and representatives' offices. By the way, it was incredible. One of our representatives was brand new at the time. He did not know the difference between a refuge and a national park. And we sat in his office for an hour explaining the difference to him. So we do a lot of work around the refuge. About once every 2 weeks, we go out on the lake picking up trash. But, you know, don't get me wrong, it's also fun. We go out in a canoe, or now we have little one-person kayaks that are pretty easy to get out there. And sometimes when we're out there, we see one of these guys. We also take people out sometimes. We have 8 canoes that we rent out, and sometimes we take groups out on guided canoe trips. We did one recently and saw a great big alligator, and these particular people were very happy about that. Sometimes they show up for groups that don't want to see them, and, you know, you don't control them very well. But he was a good one. And I'm going to just show you some pictures now, because you know what? A large part of why we do this is because every now and then we just get out on the refuge. We just have fun. And I think that that is a key to succeeding as a friends group. I really do. Because if you don't get out on the refuge and enjoy it, you're going to burn out. So all the fundraising and all the lobbying and all, you know, advocating, we don't say lobbying, right? All the advocating and all of the politics that comes up in groups, all of that falls away when you're out there and you see, you know, native spider lilies out by the trails. Exactly. And if you hear a prothonotary warbler while you're out, it's just incredible. And I mean, it does remind you of why you're there and why it's in your heart. If you can catch a sunset from the pier, some days you get luckier than others and you catch a really good one. And thanks to Dr. Mac Barham for this use of this picture. This was the NWRA's National Refuge Photography Contest winner about 3 or 4 years ago now. This was taken right by our boat launch. Somebody started up a boat, and when he started the motor, all the egrets took off at the same time, right at sunrise. This isn't photoshopped, folks. This is right at sunrise, and that was the color. So all the egrets took off at once. And that's what I want to end with, because that's how I feel this week about this conference and all the beautiful people that are here, the people who are staff, who are with the service, the people who are friends, the people who are our partners. I feel like we're just taking off. So I'm open to questions now. My refuge manager, Brett Hortman, is here. Joe Saenz is here, who's our project leader. And among us, maybe we can answer questions. Also, if you have suggestions of other ideas for outreach, I know that you have ideas that we've never thought of. And I haven't even scratched the surface of what I know about. So let's hear it. Do you have any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
How do you retain all this information and all the experiences you've had so that another friends group would not have to reinvent the wheel?
We're, and you know this, but we friends are friends with each other. we see each other at conferences and so on, but I don't know, most of you probably know this, you managers, but we'll help you. If you're trying to get a friends group started, actually one man emailed Lace and me just recently, and I think he's here somewhere. I mean, he may not be here in this room, but I think he's at this conference, and he's wanting Lace and me to help him get a friends group started at his refuge. And we're happy to do that. And by the way, I retired. I can now travel. So, yeah, our friends group has helped other friends groups in Florida, all over Louisiana. There have been a couple of groups that have written me. Electronic communication is great these days. So, yeah, we're so happy to help out. One of the things that we do a lot is when friends groups are starting, they'll write to me. They find out somehow, I don't know how, but they'll write to me and say, can we have a copy of your bylaws? Mm-hmm. Or can you help us get through this 501c3 business to help us get started? And so I've sent out copies of our bylaws to I don't even know how many groups.
And
so that's always available.
And if I could add to that, I was just talking.
This is Lace.
Lace Blue with Friends of Chassahowiska in Florida. I was just talking to Evan, a couple hours ago about the same subject. And the Refuge Association is working diligently on creating, for lack of a better word, a structure of how the friends groups can mentor other friends groups. We're doing it loosely now amongst ourselves, as Ann has spoke about. I know in Florida, friends groups are mentoring other friends groups through the same mechanism, through conferences or just simply emails or phone calls or however. So, and as Ann started off her program with, there's friends with a capital F and there's a friends with a small f, and we mesh them all together. And that's how we keep ourselves motivated and keep each other informed of different ways of fundraising as well.
Yeah, we've got two folks up here from Red River Refuge in Shreveport, and that area. It's a big refuge. And they're one of the friends groups that we worked with when they were getting started. So, and now they're going great guns. I mean, it's not because of us, but they're going great guns. That's just a fact.
Black Bayou is a shining example of what you can do if you just dream. And thanks to Ann, she really did. She's a great help to us and continues to be.
Thank you.
I'm Joan Patterson from the National Wildlife Refuge Association, and I just wanted to mention to folks, you know, we are looking at creating this new National Friends website and social media site. And Joanna Webb, who is the Friends and Partner Coordinator for the service, and I are doing a sort of an ad hoc meeting at 5:30 today in the Hall of Ideas in Room H to collect your ideas of what you want to see on this website and what the social media will be able to do for you. So I just wanted to mention that because we were talking about it. Room H, as in Harry. Okay.
Thanks. And I'd like to know just a little bit more about your group, like your membership. How many members do you have? How many board members do you have? What are they largely from Monroe? Or are they from different, around the country?
Our members on paper, like most groups, you have the members on paper, and then you have the members with their feet on the ground, that do the work. So that's two whole different things. Membership, by the end of we use the calendar year, and by the end of every calendar year, we always have 200 to 250 member units. That's not people, that's units. Some of those are organizations or businesses or families or whatever. But that's how many member units we have at the end of the year. People, feet on the ground, 40 or so? that are fairly active members. The core, the board, we have 11 people on the board. Now, our Friends group works a little differently than most of them, and I swear, I know this isn't the model for Friends groups everywhere, but it works great for us. We meet, the Friends group, not the board, we meet every month. Third Monday every month. We've been doing it for 14 years. The only month we don't have a meeting is December, and we have a party instead.
The 40 in the core group, what type of things do they help you with?
The 40, like, active members? We have several events during the year. Now, some of those folks are volunteers at the Refuge, like Sundays I'm at the Refuge. There are several other people who are at the Refuge helping out in the Visitor Center. We have a shop. One of our directors, one of our 11 on the board is the shop director, and you know, we have different directors on the board that are in charge of different things. But whoever's on duty at the Refuge has the shop and the Visitor Center. So some of those folks do that sort of work. Some of those folks do other kinds of volunteer work, like one man. I know Brett probably will sing his praises if I give him the chance. We've got one guy who mows and does all kinds of other outdoor work. He works sometimes full-time, free, just whatever is needed. So people do different things. We have several events during the year. Our biggest event is our fall celebration that's usually around the second Saturday in October. And we've been doing that since the beginning also. And at that, we always have a free fish fry, all kinds of free activities, free drinks, free everything for the community. And we just throw it open. We have free canoeing that day, nature walks. We invite all kinds of other community groups to participate, like museums. The Children's Museum is always there. You know, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts are always there. The school systems that help us and use the Refuge so much usually have activities set up. A garden club has things set up, different groups. And so we have all these activities going that day. That's our biggest thing of the year. That usually draws, according to the weather, 1,500 to 2,000 or so. It's getting bigger and bigger, and it's getting more and more children every year. We ask for donations. We have donation buckets all over the place because we have to buy food and all for this. So we're really happy if we break even that day, and so far we've broken just about even every year, except for the one year that there was a deluge. And so, of course, nobody came because they would have been up to their ankles in water. And so, luckily, that year we had decided to make our own food. So we only lost the money that we had spent buying. We had made chicken sauce piquant that year. And it was great, but we all took a lot home with us. But it wasn't too big of a loss. And then we have International Migratory Bird Day activities. We have Trail Day activities. You know, different activities during the year, and people step up and help out with those.
Do you do like a monthly newsletter? Do you email it, or do you do brochures? And do you also have like your own Facebook page, probably?
Yeah. I was a communication professor till recently, so I do a Facebook page, emails. We have a distribution list by email. If you want to get on our list, hand me a card or something, and I'll put you on the list. You can go on Facebook and get in our group. It's a group, is the way we have it set up. If Friends of Black Bayou Lake National Wildlife Refuge.
Have you found that getting more members and more interest in that?
Yes, it's wonderful. At the group page on Facebook, we have it open so that people can put pictures up freely. And it's amazing the people that go out to the refuge and take these amazing pictures, people I've never heard of. So we're bringing in some people and interests that I think we wouldn't have without the electronic media. We used to put out paper newsletters a lot. We've pretty much let that go with all the electronic media, and partly because the newsletters were costing us an arm and a leg. And so with all the electronic media that we have now, people probably get sick of getting emails from me. They get lots of communication from us. So I don't know. We probably should be putting out at least one newsletter a year, and we probably will now that I'm retired. But it hadn't happened lately. We do have brochures and so on. And we have a website. If you'd like to get on there, it's friendsofblackbayou.org. O-R-G. friendsofblackbayou.org. Write the whole thing out.
I'm a Friends for the Minnesota Valley Wildlife Refuge. We're right next to the Mall of America. And our refuge, the airport flies over the refuge, so we have a little bit of a noise problem, but the animals don't have a problem with the noise, and the plants grow really well because the carbon dioxide falls on the plants and grow. But our Friends membership expands because our members tell their friends, and their friends tell their friends. So we have members all over the world because they have relatives and go all over. But for volunteers, like you have scout groups, we use the scout groups for volunteers to come out and clean the reservation, go out and clean buckthorn, set up stuff, and we use them, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, because they have to do community projects, so we use them heavily. So that's one aspect that we do, and we have a lot of projects that we use for, we do projects for our refuge by helping them out. We have a school bus where we take, a bus fund where we take kids from the city, which hasn't been to the refuge, which is 4 miles away. We take them to the refuge and then show them what the refuge is, which they've never been in the woods. And then we help them with the fish day, which then the local fish company, or not fish company, like the outfitters, give the reels, rod and reels to the kids. And then we show them how to clean fish and bait and how to throw them. And then at the same time, we have the normal, or the local Native American comes down from their reservation and gives a free fish fry for the kids. So we have a lot of volunteers coming down to get that free fish fry. So, thank you.
That's wonderful. That's great. That's great examples of the kind of diversity and the kind of outreach that you can use. I know close to us is the Natchitoches Fish Hatchery, and they have a wonderful event every year. They have a friends group at the Natchitoches Fish Hatchery, and they have a great event every year celebrating the Indian culture, the Native American culture in that area. I believe it's Coshada Indians in that area, and the Indian tribe participates in that event. Are we going to let Brett talk?
I just want to kind of toot the horn of the Friends group just for their hard work, and that it kind of snowballs. I've gotten the privilege of coming in as a manager of Black Bayou. They were already up and going, and it's amazing how you'll be in your office and you get a phone call and there's somebody begging to give you money for a project. And it wasn't anything that the Friends group was working on at the time. Just to give you an example, there was a local water company here recently that was involved in a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit, and the federal magistrate who we had out to the refuge and she was a member of the Friends group on paper,
On paper.
And she awarded the whole settlement, which was $80,000, to the Friends of Black Bayou to do water projects. And so
That was
that's,
just out of the sky.
you know, so anytime you build that community support, and you may not know that you're doing well in the community, things like that happen. And it's attributed to the Friends group being diverse and having so many different people in their membership that it's eventually going to catch up with you. So just keep it.
So tell them what you did then.
Well, what we did was we matched that with a challenge cost share, and now we're able to do, we have rehabbed all of our impoundments. We've got new pumps for a demonstration area for moist soil, which is going to be a excellent environmental education tool. We have 10 units. We can do 10 different treatments on. We can show kids what our moist soil units, how they react with different treatments, and we're just about completed with that. So we had $160,000 to do that. That all came to the Friends group. So that's just another example, and there's a lot of other examples like that that she didn't have time to talk about, but it just shows that you know, you may not think you're reaching anybody, but you are.
And if you've got a good refuge manager that knows how to take that money and make it into more money, it's really smart. It's really smart. You can do a lot with $160,000.
I had a question. Steve Reichert from Las Vegas, New Mexico Wildlife Refuge. And we have a friends group there, and I was curious what the population is of Monroe, your source of funding.
I think we're really fortunate that the size of the community that we're in, I think, makes it actually kind of easier than in a larger community or a smaller one. And so I know some of the things that I talk about won't work at all refuges, and you have to work with what you have at your own particular refuge. But our city is about 60,000 people. In our parish, that's like a county, that's about 150,000, I think, in Ouachita Parish. Most of our constituency is in that parish, although we bring in some from about 5 to 7 more parishes, probably. Funding, we have a shop. We have our membership dues. We have businesses and organizations that give money. We have some people, we have a $500 lifetime membership level for individuals, and we have some people that give that every year. And we haven't decided to tell them yet that lifetime means lifetime, but they keep giving that 500. Some of them up it to 1,000 in a good year. So, you know, that's a big help that we've got some really faithful supporters among individuals as well as businesses and local industry and so on. We've gotten great support from the local Convention and Visitors Bureau. Like I said, when I was president and we were building the Conservation Learning Center, I was running every few days because they had to have a bill to get the money. That was how it was set up. So I would get the bill, and by hand, I would carry it from the contractor. I would carry the bill over to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, get the check, you know, show them the bill, get the check, take it to the bank, put it in the bank, write a check to the contractor, and take it back to the contractor. And so that happened many, many times during that process. We've done several things like that where it's all, you know, how you, as a kid, make a teepee by putting sticks together. They all lean against each other. And if one of them goes, the whole thing's going to go. Well, that's kind of how this was. Everything was a match to a match. You know, if one thing had gone, the whole thing would have fallen flat. that was why I was willing to get on the road and hand carry checks, bills, whatever, every day if it took that, just to make sure everything was taken care of when it needed to be taken care of.
Hi, my name is Gay. I'm from the San Diego Refuge Complex. I'm a friend. I wanted to know what you did when you populated your board. How did you populate your board? How did you decide what kind of people you might approach to be members of your board?
Okay. Mostly who was willing, but it's not just that. Yeah, right. Okay. One of the things that I think it works really well, and I used to talk about this to my classes as well, about organizational structure, and that's now remembering that our friends group meets every month. We don't just have a board meeting. So decisions are made by the people who are there. But in our bylaws, it says the board members have to be there. If they miss a certain number of meetings, they're off the board. We've never had to actually enforce that, but that's in the bylaws. So we don't just have board meetings. We have friends meetings. And so whoever's there that's a dues-paying friends member gets to vote on whatever comes up. So, but the board is the officers. So we have our original president was there for 5 years, and then I was there for 5 years, and now the third president of our group has been there almost 4 years now. The members of the board pick the officers in our group. I'm trying to remember our bylaws now.
I guess what I want to know is how did you go out into the community to find those people?
Okay, as I said, Kelby had a radio show. And so he got on his radio show, he announced there's a new refuge that's going to be starting just north of town. If you're interested in being a part of a support group for that refuge, come down for a public meeting at the newspaper office, and it was probably just about this many people in the room. It was a great response. Now, most of those people, never came back. They were just curious and just came to the first meeting. But enough of them came the second time when we actually met up at the refuge in front of that old falling down house. And we were standing in a circle. And Kelby, I can remember him saying, you need somebody to step up and be the leader, be the president or whatever, or it's not going to get off the ground. Somebody's got to step up. And it was pretty much, I was standing next to Bob, who's an economist, and he's got a pretty strong personality, and I thought that's what we needed for that beginning of the group, because we were going to have to raise a bunch of money and people were going to have to work really hard. So I kind of punched him. And he put his hand up. I remember Kelby's wife, another biologist, telling Kelby after that meeting, and Kelby said, oh yeah, you'd be good, that'd be great. And I remember Amy saying, an economist? We've got all these biologists and all these other people that are interested in this refuge, and an economist is going to be the president? And Kelby, to his credit, I guess he was the one who okayed that. Because he said an economist knows what sort of effect this refuge is going to have on the area. And he can sell that to the community, that it's going to have a great effect on the area. And he did sell it on that. And he's done several economic impact studies and things since that time to show what sort of an impact it has had. So I guess Kelby picked the first president. After that, it's just been us. Now, what we're looking for, I think maybe your real question, besides leadership qualities, are our board members have particular jobs. So there's the shop director. And she became the shop director while I was president. It's one of the best things I ever did while I was president, was asking her if she would be the shop director. She had already indicated an interest in the shop, and I thought she'd be good at it, and she has been crackerjack. She's been great. Our educational director is Amy Uchley. She's a biologist. She's great at it. Her heart's in it. She was an obvious choice for us to ask. So it kind of goes like that. An older lady in the group is the membership director. She takes care of writing letters to all of the new members and thanking them for sending their money in, that kind of thing. So it's according to people's individual talents and interests. We try to match people. It's sort of a matchmaking process, trying to match people to what they like to do and what they can do. Bob, the economist, is now the treasurer, by the way. We've had good treasurers. We've had people who have the skills. That's a big job, by the way. If you're trying to start a friends group up, you've got to have a good treasurer. Oh, it's definitely hard to get out of. I got out of it by being really bad at it. I had the job for 3 months. Our treasurer moved. I had the job for 3 months, and then Bob took it over, and I became vice president again, which is what I like. Yeah, when he asked me questions I couldn't answer about the money, then Lace.
Yeah, just real quick, because I know we're fixing to run out of time. Another way to populate your board is through Master Naturalist programs, Audubon, other organizations. There's a lot of crossover as well when you're trying to start up a friends group, and just get the word out, or just start them off on a project, get them to volunteer, and you never know, they'll start to join. And just real quick, another, to segue off of Brett and his comment on money just happened to fall into your lap. We had that happen with us, and on our new member welcome letter, we always put the projects on that we're looking at to do, and we had a family foundation contact us and say, every year we vote on a project, can you give us information more on your projects? Just by simply having it in our cover letters, it struck a light with them, and they ended up giving us $160,000 to restore an area on the refuge that the refuge wasn't, able to do so. So, sometimes you just got to be ready for those opportunities and ask.
Yeah, and just jump in there when there's an opportunity that shows its face. One of the strange groups that jumped in and helped us at one point was the Young Lawyers Association. Gave us money 2 years running. They had a project where they had a run, and they gave us their proceeds 2 years running just because they liked the stuff we were doing. I don't know if they identified with the snakes on the refuge or what. I like snakes. Snakes are some of my friends. That was terrible. All right, thank you all so much, and I'll be around.